Hi everyone, welcome to the session on critical reasoning. Before we start, let me just check if the audio, visual, and everything is clear. Okay, so yeah, I think we are clear here. Okay, all right. So there we go. So I just wanted to confirm before you start that if the audio, visual, and everything is clear, and I have confirmed that. Uh, so welcome to this short session on XAT 2019 critical reasoning. Of course, this is for your XAT 2020 preparation because that's the exam that is upcoming in a few weeks. You're right. We are standing on, I think, 8th of December right now, and you have your XAT coming up on, I think, 5th of Jan probably. So almost near about a month before you have to appear for the exam. We've already discussed the advantages of XAT, and I think we already had a session on XAT orientation, right? The XAT orientation for verbal ability orientation for XAT. In today's session, so we shall be focusing on one of the many types of questions that are asked in XAT, and in fact, we'll be discussing, and then that question type is critical reasoning questions, and the way we're gonna be going about it is by application. So in the last, for instance, like last two, in the in the last few years, that has been asking at least two, three to even four critical reasoning questions in every one of these in every year in the paper basically, right? So we'll be talking about that. Before any of that, I'll just a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm Anupam Mishra from the batch of 2018. I'm Lucknow, and these are my CAT credentials. I worked as a verbal as well as a quant faculty before. Before I went on to complete my MBA from IIM Lucknow, and yeah, so that's about me. You can check out my profile on Unacademy or other platforms. Okay, so all right. So in this slide that you have in front of you right now, I have kind of summed up what all you need to be prepared for so far as the verbal and logical ability section of your XAT exam is concerned. Okay, so the type of questions that you most probably you'll encounter in your XAT exams can be divided into these 5 categories as you can see on your screen. Okay, let me just talk a little bit about them, and then we'll move on to today's topic. The first is vocabulary and grammar. So in the last, so again, guys, this comes from the analysis of the last 5 to 7 years papers of XAT, actual XAT papers. So 4 to 5 questions out of these 26 questions will pertain to the topics of vocabulary and grammar, out of which it is heavily indexed towards vocabulary. Grammar is hardly, maybe in 2 or 3 years, maybe you'll come across 2 questions across a period of 3 years maybe, right? So almost out of these 5 questions, 4 of them will be vocabulary, 1 maybe a grammar, and even that grammar question is not a pure grammar question. It's more like, it's more the crux of the question is more vocab oriented, like it's more of a word usage question than a grammar question. Okay, but not strictly vocabulary, and that's why you can call it grammar question. So that's the first category. Second category of questions, of course, reading comprehension. You'll be required to answer. You'll have the opportunity to answer 4 reading comprehensions, 13 to 15 questions across 4 to 5 reading comprehensions. Then you have parajumbles. They have been quite consistent when it comes to parajumbles. Every year, XAT throws at you exactly 2 parajumbles. Exactly 2 parajumbles. Okay, so that's about that. Then you have critical reasoning and para summary questions, right? Critical reasoning, and then finally after these, like 4-5 questions here, 13 to 15 questions here, 2 questions from here, and then you have these 2 categories of questions. One is critical reasoning, the other is para summary and para inference, right? So out of these, among these 2, like I've not given separate categories for these because there's no like sometimes out of these 4-5 questions, most of them are critical reasoning. Sometimes 50% of them are critical reasoning, 50% of parasummary, but it kind of keeps varying from year to year. But one thing that we're certain about is you know more this most of these 4 to 5 questions are critical reasoning questions. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 maximum will be your parasummary questions, otherwise most of them are critical reasoning questions. So in the next few weeks, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, what I plan to do is I plan to come up with these YouTube sessions, short YouTube sessions, where I'll try to take you through some examples of each and every of these question types. Okay, and we're gonna start this exercise with the examples of critical reasoning questions. Okay, so and that's what this today's session is about. So what I've done is I've taken your paper of XAT 2019 as a as a sample, and we're starting with the critical reasoning questions that were asked in XAT 2019. Okay, last year itself. So the number of questions pertaining to this topic, that is critical reasoning, that were asked in XAT 2019 were 4. So we have 4 questions here. Question 1, then 2, 3 and 4. We'll go to it as we go about it. What I require you to do now is let me see if there's any doubt or comments. Okay, so what I require you to do, anyone who's watching this session, my request would be just that try to attempt this question by yourself first. Just attempt this question by yourself first, and I can give you like a couple of minutes if you need for attempting this question. And once you're done with it, let me know in the comment section what is the answer. Let me know your answers in the comment section. Okay, so I'll be able to see your comments from my own screen here. All right, so yeah, please be started. Get started. I wish there was a way to move the screen here on to the top, but what I'll do is I'll just read out the part that is probably is not visible due to this my picture here. I'll just read that out. So okay, for you. Empirical observation told us years ago that goats were slowly becoming the new dog. Okay, and according to a new study, they are truly qualified to be man's best friend. Okay, so this part says becoming the new dog, and according to a new study, they are truly qualified to be man's best friend. This part just says the Royal Society, right? So I think this part, both of these parts are clear. So the Royal Society released heartwarming research showing that just like humans, goats have no desire to interact with people who come off as angry or upset, and that they are much more attracted to those with big smiles plastered across their faces. Okay, fair enough. So far so good, right? Then you have when 12 males and 8 females were released into a pen decorated with images of happy and angry humans, right? So 12 male and 8 female goats, and they were released into a pen decorated with images of happy and angry humans. The scientists learned that goats can distinguish between happy and angry images of the same person, and in general they prefer their humans to be happy. Okay, so it's on the face of it seems like a very straightforward passage, that nothing about it seems to be nuanced or complicated, but I think there'll be a change in your opinion once you go through the options to answer this question. So just look at this. Let's go through the question. Which of the following statements is definitely true according to the passage, right? So 5 statements. One of them is definitely true according to the passage. Let me use a marker instead here. I think yeah. So which of the following is definitely true according to the passage? Okay, so first one, when they look at a smiling person, the goats are happy. Okay, when they look at a smiling person, the goats are happy. That's the first statement. Okay, let's read the other ones. The others. When they look at a frowning person, goats are afraid of him. Because so goats have no desire to interact with people. That's something that's mentioned here, but there's nothing in the passage says that when they look at an angry person, they are afraid of him. Okay, they have no desire to interact with people who come off as angry or upset, but it doesn't see that the goats are afraid of those people. So you can clearly rule this out because of this part, because nowhere in the passage can we see that it says that they are afraid of him, right? Next, when they look at a straight-faced person, goats remain passive. Okay. Again, we do know that goats do not show any desire to interact with people. Not showing any desire to interact with people might lead to two consequences. One is, like, they can show no desire by being passive, or they can show no desire by, in fact, just moving away from the person, right? Moving away from the person. So there are two possibilities here, given that they have no. So even in the scenario when they show no desire, there are two ways they can react. This just talks about one of the ways, which is remaining passive. So that's not necessarily correct. That's not necessarily correct, right? So you can rule that out as well. Coming to the next one, when they look at a frowning person, the goats are sad. When they look at a frowning person, the goats are sad. Again, there's nothing like guys, just look at the whole passage. Nowhere does the passage say that goats are sad, they become sad. Okay, it does say that they prefer their humans to be happy, right? It does say this. It does wait a second, I'll just use a different marker. It does say that they prefer their humans to be happy, but it nowhere does it say, or it also says that they have no desire to interact with people, but nowhere does it say that they can be sad on when they are looking at a frowning person, right? So we can rule that out as well. Next, when they look at a smiling person, goats run towards him. Goats run towards him. No, I don't think even that is mentioned. So guys, this is one of those questions which can be solved easily if you solve it by elimination. Actually, to be frank, even when you solve it by elimination, it won't be very straight. It won't be quite straightforward. That straightforward. Okay, so but at least you'll be better off. You'll be in a good position to solve it at least, right? So see, first one, goat. There's nothing in the passage says that they are afraid of him. Nothing in the passage says that they are passive. Nothing in the passage says that they are sad, and nothing in the passage says that they run towards him. Of course, this is definitely not there, right? This is definitely not there. So what is actually the right answer? What are you left with? You're left with just option 1, right? And that is actually the right answer. Option 1 is the right answer. Okay, and but very Likhit says option E. No, Likhit, option E says that when they look at a smiling person, goats run towards him. Nothing in the passage says that the goats run towards a smiling person, right? It just, so in case you're confused because of this part, which says that when 12 males and 8 females were released into a pen decorated with images of angry and happy and angry humans, they prefer happy people. Yes, correct. Look at that's absolutely right. You're absolutely correct there. You're absolutely right there. So and that's what I was going to talk about next. That's the next point, and that's exactly what makes this question difficult. Okay, and then so just pay attention here. So we agree that nothing in the passage says that goats are afraid of the person, of a frowning person. Nothing in the passage says that goats remain passive with a straight-faced person. Also, there's nothing in the passage that says goats are sad, and there's nothing in the passage that says goats run towards him. This is definitely not there. In fact, the sad and the happy part or afraid part can probably even be, if you take a certain leap of inferences, you might be able to infer that. But goats run towards him is definitely cannot be inferred. But then, how can option A be the right answer and option D, which is quite similar, just with the opposite polarity? How can it be the wrong answer? Okay, that's the question. I guess that's the question, right? And let me answer that for you. Okay, my answer here is quite simple. See, wait a second. So when you look at just look at this part. Let's first talk about the option D. Option D. Okay, what exactly do we have here that can support option D? Okay, so the Royal Society released heartwarming research showing that just like humans, goats have no desire to interact with people who come off as angry or upset, right? So people who are angry or upset or maybe frowning, etc., with them, goats do not have any desire, right? So this if I go on like if I go to the if I maybe let's say take a slight leap of inference, I might I might I still understand it will be kind of a stretch of an inference, but still, if there is anything in in the whole paragraph that can support this point, that can support the goats are sad point, it will be this, right? It will be this, that goats have no desire to interact with people who come off as angry and upset. If there were any point at all, although I agree that goats having no desire and goats being sad are not the same. Okay, just stay with me. Okay. uh, so option D, if there is anything that supports option D, it is this, although that also does not support it enough. Okay, same thing with option A, right? Option A is almost the same option but a different polarity. This talks about goats being sad, this talks about goats being happy. If there were anything that in the passage that could support this inference, what would that be? That would be these 2 points, right? One is and that they are much more attracted to those with big smiles, right? Now you might make a point that much more attracted obviously does not necessarily mean that they are happy. Attracted does not necessarily mean happy. Fair enough. Okay, but there's one more point. There's one more point that's mentioned here, which is here in the last line. That goats can distinguish between happy and angry images of the same person, and in general they prefer their humans to be happy. So basically these 2 points that we have here, that they're attracted, that's point 1, and that then they prefer their humans to be happy. These are the 2 points that support that maybe, if at all, maybe can help you draw the inference that when they look at a smiling person, they are happy. And this point here on the top, let me use a different highlighter for that. This point here on the top, wait a second, it's becoming too messy. Okay, this point here on the top that I just marked with its blue color. Just a minute, guys. Yeah, with this blue color, goats have no desire to interact with people. This, if at all something supports option D, it will be this point, right? This blue supports blue and yellow support yellow. That's so far as option A and D are concerned. If you however talk about option say B, there's nothing. Option B we can totally rule out. There's nothing at all in the passage that says that they are afraid of him. Okay, no desire can probably go to an extent of saying sad, but it can never talk about being afraid. So you can totally rule this out. Remain passive also, we also consider that there can be 2 possibilities of having no desire. One is remaining passive, or the other is just moving away. So you can rule this out as well. And go to run towards you, can rule this out as well. So you are finally left with options only A and option D. Out of A and D, which one of these 2? D is supported only by this part, right? Goats have no desire to interact with people who come off as angry or upset. And A is supported by 2 points actually. It's actually supported by 2 points. Okay. And for the same reason, okay, A is supported by 2 points. Just a minute. For the same reason, you can. So it's more like whatever little substantiation that these 2 options can draw from the paragraph. It is more for A than it is for option D. Okay, and hence the least objectionable of all these options will be option A, and which will be the answer. Okay, which will be the answer. Moreover, when you say that they are attracted to those with big smiles, that is more near to them being happy than having no desire is nearer to them being sad. Okay, so I hope I've been able to bring some clarity to this. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So, critical reasoning, second question. The first, let me just read it out for you. And okay, just a second. Let me get a point. Okay, an accurate measure of drug efficacy would require comparing the response of patients taking it with that of patients taking placebos. The drug effect could then be calculated by subtracting the placebo response from the overall response. Okay, guys, I'm gonna just read this part for you again. Accurate measure of drug efficacy would require comparing the response of patients taking it with that of patients taking placebos. What are placebos, by the way? Placebos are basically, to know placebos, you should probably first know what is placebo effect. Placebo effect is basically, let's say, you go to a you go to some doctor and you tell them that you have a headache and you're not able to sleep, etc. And let's just hypothetically assume that the doctor is not able to find any reasons for that. He's not able to diagnose, get to the, so like able to find the cause for that. Why are you facing some problems? Let's say he still gives you some tablets and then just tells you that okay, just have these tablets twice in the day, and your headache as well as your insomnia both will be cured. And although in reality those tablets are just sugar pills, they don't really have that kind of effect, right, on people. They're not really meant for curing headaches and insomnia. But even considering the fact that they are not, when you actually go on and take those tablets for 2 days twice every day, and you actually realize that you have lost your, like, you don't have headache anymore, they actually end up working, okay, and you don't have insomnia anymore, you're able to fall asleep well on time. So basically you're cured of your problems by taking some tablets which don't really have such the said curing effects, right? What exactly happened there? What happened there was you just made yourself believe that you were just made to believe that these tablets would work, and hence psychologically it had a psychological effect and your illnesses were cured, right? That exactly is called the placebo effect. That's what exactly is called the placebo effect, right? So I think that should, and these tablets, the tablets that were given to you would be called as placebos, okay? So let's go through the paragraph once more, now that you know what placebo is. An accurate measure of drug efficacy would require comparing the response of drug efficacy, right? How effective is a drug? An accurate measure of drug efficacy would require comparing the response of patients taking it with that of patients taking placebos, right? The drug effect could then be calculated by subtracting the placebo response from the overall response, much as a deli counter worker subtracts the weight of the container to determine how much lobster salad you are getting. In the last half of the 1950s, this calculus gave rise to a new way to evaluate drugs. And what was this new calculus? The double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial, in which neither the patient nor the clinician knew who was getting the active drug and who the placebo, right? So the active drug is the drug whose effectiveness or efficacy you actually want to test. And the placebo is a drug for which you know that it doesn't really work in that scenario. These are just essentially sugar pills, I guess. Assuming that these sugar pills don't have, the condition is that the sugar pills won't have any therapeutic effect. So in that scenario, so guys, I hope you're able to understand like how is this drug effect being measured, right? So what they want to defactorize is when testing a new drug, whenever they are testing a new drug, what they want to defactorize is the psychological response of patients to just the idea of taking a drug for their condition, okay, right? The placebo effect, they want to defactorize the placebo effect, right? So the placebo effect is, even if irrespective of what kind of drug you give, whether it is actually effective or not, there will anyways be some kind of improvement in the patient's health. They want to defactorize it, and hence what they do is they have two separate groups. To one group they actually give the actual drug that they want to test, and to the second group they give just sugar pills, right? That's just placebos. And then the effect on the illnesses of this drug on this group is compared not with zero effect but with the effect of the placebos on this group, and hence the effect of this group kind of cancels out all the placebo effect that might have become part of the results here, okay? So Likhit says option A, okay? So that's what placebo is. Now just let's look at the question. Which of the following options is the wrong answer to this question? How does a double blind ensure a better trial of a new drug? Guys, you need to be very careful in these scenarios, okay? See, the question here is not very straightforward, okay? It's kind of asked in a convoluted way. Which of the following is a wrong answer to this question? Which question? The question this question, right? That how does a double blind ensure a better trial of a new drug? So you have to find the wrong answer to this, not the right answer to this. Correct? So wrong answer. That means 4 out of these 5 options should be able to explain how a double blind will ensure a better trial of the new drug, and one of them should not be able to explain that. Okay, let's look at the options. The first one says it increases the overall response to the drug. It increases the overall response to the drug. Okay, so double blind test increases the overall response to the drug. I don't think that's something that is mentioned anywhere, and there's a good chance that this might be the wrong answer to this question, and hence might be the right answer to this question. Okay, so 1 is a good option for us. Let's read the rest of the one. So Likith, I think you might be right, but let's still go through the rest of the questions. The patient does not know whether he or she is getting a placebo. Fair enough. Yes. See guys, the double blind actually means that one blind is for the patient not knowing whether the patient's not knowing whether they are getting the placebo or not, and the second blind, it's called double blind because the second blind is about the clinician also who's administering the drugs also not knowing which group is getting placebo, which is getting the active. So that's why has to avoid any biases on the from the side of the clinicians as well. Okay, so that's why it's double blind. So patient does not know whether he or she is getting a placebo. So yes, double blind does take care of that. So this can be a right answer to this, and hence a wrong answer to this. It reflects the calculus and is exemplified by the Delhi counter episode. Yes, it's very clearly mentioned here. The analogy has been drawn very clearly that it is very much similar to the Delhi counter worker subtracting the weight of the container to determine how much lobster salad you're getting. So yes, this also explains it. The clinician cannot pick and choose patients to whom placebos can be administered, right? And hence the double blind. The first blind is for patient, the second is for clinician. So yes, this also answers this. Finally, it gives rise to an unbiased testing of drugs. Yes, fair enough. That is kind of the conclusive tone, right? So the double blind ensures a better trial because it gives rise to an unbiased testing of drugs, because neither the patients nor the clinician know. So this also explains it, this also explains it, this also explains it, and this also explains it, right? So option A is the only one that does not explain this question. It does not answer this question, and hence that's the correct answer. Okay, so Likith, you've got your correct answer right. Okay, guys, so let's discuss the one more question, and before we close for today. Critical reasoning question number 3, and this is actually a good one. So let me read it out. Let's solve it together. Dense, dirty, and laced with air. Dense, dirty, air laced with grease best describes the atmosphere of most Lagos streets. Okay, drive from one corner of this great West African city to another, and in no time you will find surfaces lightly dusted, like a soft sprinkling of icing on cakes. Okay, under the half moons of fingernails, thick grime settles. Okay, all right. So guys, let's understand the part, the meaning of the part we have read so far. Dense, dirty, air laced with grease, etc., etc. Best describes the atmosphere of Lagos. So basically, Lagos is a place which has yes, Suraj. That's you wait a second. It'll be difficult for me to do it right now. I'll just read out the part to you. Okay, for now. And then from the next session onwards, I'll make sure that it is movable and it can be placed elsewhere, right? So for now, you'll have to bear with it just for this session. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll just read out that section. I'll read out that section for you. Dense, dirty, air laced with grease best describes the atmosphere of most Lagos streets. Okay. So this says atmosphere of most Lagos. Lagos is a town or city. Lagos streets. Drive from one corner of this great West African city to another, and in no time, this says in no time you will find surfaces lightly dusted, like a soft sprinkling of icing on cakes. Okay, then under the half moons of fingernails, thick grime settles. So basically, guys, let's just understand the meaning of the first part. It just says that, well, the atmosphere in this city is quite polluted. That's the essence of what he's saying. If you drive from one end of the one corner of the city to the other corner, basically drive for a long time in the city, what you'll find is that the surfaces, like whatever you're driving in, or like your body, or anywhere, any kind of surface that you have around yourself, will have soft sprinkling of icing, or like will be lightly dusted. You'll have dust covered on yourself, right? Or in case you're driving on a car, you have dust covered on the a layer of dust on the car, right? Also, under the half moons of fingernails, you have your fingernails, right? On the half moons of fingernails, you'll have thick grime settles. Okay, it's a scene taken as typically African. I hope that the first part is clear. It's a scene taken as typically African, polluted, bedraggled, unhealthy. This has only ever been possible by exploitation of Africa's people. Okay. This week, 5 West African countries, Nigeria included, announced plans to end the practice of European oil companies and traders exporting African quality diesel. Exporting what? African quality diesel. Fair enough, right? So dirty fuel has earned the name because it is imported diesel with sulfur levels as high as 3000 parts per million, when the European maximum is 10 parts per million. To be clear, African quality fuel is fuel not fit for European humans. To be clear, African quality fuel is fuel not fit for European humans. So guys, I'll just explain the gist to you. The gist is just that this author starts with telling you about how polluted the atmosphere of Lagos, one of the African cities, is, and that it has been made possible by exploitation of the African people. How? Because European countries have been exporting diesel or fuel which is of bad quality. Like bad quality in terms of the sulfur levels in the fuel are quite high, like 3000 parts per million, and hence this fuel is used by the cars, and it is eventually emitted into the atmosphere, and hence the atmosphere becomes too grimy and dusty, etc. Okay, that's the context here. That's the backdrop here. In this backdrop, what has happened is that this week, 5 West African countries, Nigeria included, they have announced plans to end the practice of importing this African quality diesel from these European oil countries, European oil companies. Okay, and yeah, so that's your passage. I hope you have been able to get the gist of it. Now let's go through the question. Okay, which of the options is not necessarily the underlying assumption of the author in the paragraph above? And guys, please notice here how the way Zat phrases this question. It's not very straightforward. It is a little convoluted, right? Is not necessarily the underlying assumption. That means out of these 5, one of them will be an assumption, right? One of them like not necessarily. So 4 of them will actually be assumptions, and one of them will not be an assumption. Correct? Is which of the following options is not necessarily the underlying assumption? So one of them will actually not be an assumption. So you have to look for that one statement which you think cannot be the assumption of the author. The other 4 can in some way be construed as the assumption of the author. Okay. Likhit says option C. Suraj, what do you think? Others, anyone else? Chalo, let's look at the options. European oil companies dump their fuel on African countries. This is a very valid assumption, right? It's very clear from the option that yes, European oil companies have been selling fuels or dumping fuels, because you can use the word dump because the quality of this diesel is really bad, right? The quality is really bad, so you can use the word dump. So I think there's nothing wrong with this can be a valid assumption. Right? So this is a valid assumption. Dump their fuels on African countries. Economic exploitation until challenged runs smoothly. Suraj says option D. Okay, let's look at it. Economic exploitation until challenged runs smoothly. Guys, economic exploitation until challenged runs smoothly is can be the assumption, can be one of the assumptions. Why? Because of this part. This part here. This week, 5 West African countries, etc., announced plans to end the practice of European oil companies and this exporting. Basically, Up until these countries had not made such plans, the European countries kept on exporting bad quality diesel to African countries, right? So they were exploiting them. It's already mentioned here, right? This is something about the exploitation that is already mentioned here. Exploitation of Africa's people, right? So this is definitely one of the assumptions, one of the possible potential assumptions. Racism makes it easy for Europeans to justify the exploitation of inferior races. Excuse me. Racism makes it easy for Europeans to justify the exploitation of inferior races. Racism makes it easy for Europeans to justify the exploitation of inferior races. Option C, Likhit said option C, right? Typically, okay. This can actually be a tricky one. C can actually be a tricky one because, see, the reason is just this part. Like, if you look at European humans, like, you might be tempted, and then people who think, yes, exactly, Joseph, that's exactly what I was going to point towards. That's exactly what I was going to point towards. This part, European humans, right? To be clear, African quality fuel is fuel not fit for European humans. This might actually, push you in the direction of considering that the author has assumed that it is racism which makes it easy for the Europeans to justify the exploitation of inferior races, right? This inferior part, and that's exactly, this is the only part that can push you towards this option. Okay, so let's keep it in, let's keep it here. Let's see. For now, let's just keep it aside. Let's go through the other options. Okay. Wait a second. Next, typically African cities today are not fit for human habitation. Now, you might be tempted to think that, okay, there's nothing that is mentioned here in the passage, nothing as such is mentioned in the passage. But I think this part here, this part right here, I'll show you here. The part that starts dense, dirty, and airless with grease describe the atmosphere of most Lagos streets. Also, polluted, bedraggled, and unhealthy. Polluted, bedraggled, and unhealthy clearly point out that this can be one of the assumptions, right? This can be one of the assumptions. Suraj, you answered D, right? This D actually can be see, because of, you can see the words here, right? The way is said that it is polluted, it is bedraggled. Bedraggled is not a it's not a very light adjective. Okay, so bedraggled and unhealthy, so they are not fit for human habitation. It's quite clear that this might be one of the assumptions, right? So this can also be one of the assumptions, and hence you can rule this out. Okay, you can rule this out. African nations, let's look at the last one. African nations had accepted dirty fuel as the norm. This can also be one of the assumptions, right? Because if they had not accepted, see, the end of something, what does it mean? What does the end of something mean? Let me just come to this part. To end the practice, just look at this part. End the practice of European companies. If you're ending a practice, that means the practice was there in the first place, right? It was actually taking place earlier, right? Fair enough. If it was actually taking place earlier, that means they had accepted dirty fuel as the norm earlier. Otherwise, a city like Lagos would not have reached such a state of unhealthy environment, right? And hence this can also be one of the assumptions. Option D can also be one of the assumptions. Let me just okay, they had accepted dirty fuel as the norm. Okay, that can be one of the assumptions. Option C is the only one, although I agree with Joseph's point here. I do acknowledge the point that this last line that you have here, African quality fuel is fuel not fit for European humans. This does seem to point that the author may have a slightly some kind of I don't know, racist underpinning here. There might be some kind of racist underpinning here, but that's not as substantiated as the other options are. European oil companies dump their fuel. This is definitely an assumption. This can definitely be an assumption. Economic exploitation until challenge runs smoothly, definitely an assumption, because this point is mentioned right here. African cities today are not fit for habilitation. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Hi Sachin, how are you? So Joseph, that's what I'm saying. Uh, if you look at these two, like right. Typically African cities today are not fit for human habitation. This is can also be an assumption, and African nations had accepted dirty fuel as the norm, can also be an assumption. Okay, so and hence you'll have to go with option C, which can not, it can't necessarily be the, and also please note this word, guys. It says not necessarily. Okay, the underlying assumption. So you need to understand here how like there's a lot of difference between critical reasoning questions of XAT and CAT. Okay, and yeah, we have seen just three questions, and it's quite apparent, right? So the questions are not very straightforward. Hi Ashutosh, how are you? Okay, so yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. And wait a second, I'll keep this. We had to stretch the session a little too far for today, but I wanted to complete one more question, but I don't. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. Just as I want your opinion, guys. Anyone who's all those who are watching, in the next upcoming YouTube sessions, what would you want me to take a session on? What kind of questions do you want me to take a session on? Just put it in the comments. Would it be reading comprehension? You want to do some reading comprehension, parajumbles, or parasummary? And I'll just take your opinion here, and I'll close the session after this. So I can plan accordingly. I'm basically trying to understand what is the major pain point for most of the learners here. So I'll try to come up with something on those lines. Poem related? Vamshi says poem related. Okay, Vamshi, we can do that. But you see what you need to, and I've already taken a special class here. Critical reasoning would be more helpful, I know, exactly, Joe. So see, I've already taken a special class where I've talked about what kind of questions you should be attempting and what kind of questions you should definitely be skipping. Okay, and okay, and the poems that are usually asked in that, they, I don't think by just solving a couple of poems, well, I don't think it's the perfect strategy to go for questions which are more on the difficult side, especially when the number of marks that you are required to score, score is just I don't know, 11 out of, if you just need to get 10 questions or 11 questions right out of 26 questions. I don't think you should be focusing on passages which take too much of time, or which can be where there is a lot of uncertainty involved, and that's the case with the poem RCs, right? But still, I'll consider that to Vamshi, and Joe and Suraj said critical reasoning. So okay, all right, guys. So I'll do some more critical reasoning questions. Maybe I'll do a question from ZAT 2018, 17, 16 maybe. Okay. We have just one more critical reasoning 2019 question left, so we'll take it up in the next session. Okay. Great having you guys here. And thanks a ton, guys. I'm anyways doing this course, this course as a long-term course for the whole of December up until the 4th of January. So in case you guys plan to go for Unacademy Plus, you can use my code mishra.anupam102, mishra.anupam102, okay, to get a subscription if you want. Otherwise, we'll anyways meet in the next YouTube session. Okay, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you.